This is NEGOTIATEx TV.
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us on the NEGOTIATEx podcast. We are continuing our conversation with Steve Albin Tineo, CEO of Assertive Group. If you haven't already checked out part A of this show, be sure to do that first. Let's jump into the conversation with Steve. You offer a series of conferences for individuals seeking to go from good to great as they manage conflict. In the past, these conferences have brought together senior executives, diplomats, Formula One drivers, many other leaders. What do your upcoming conferences cover, and why should someone consider participating?
Because I'm super charismatic, I'm amazing, and, and I'm super humble.
See the buyer.
Exactly. I'm super humble. Look, the conferences I give, I had one this morning, which I really liked. I sat down in front of this group of people, and then, they were all very skilled and talented people. And I say, guys, you're all very clever and smart, and I don't think that I have anything that, I can just bring you like this, that I know better than you. And I went to the first one, I hit his hand, and I say, start with the first question. And we had such a moment of authenticity all together that was actually very inspiring. That's what people need. They need more space where they can openly be themselves, and less where they're just going to learn the theory about life, which who am I really to tell them how they should do their life? So in the question you've asked, you say that it's brought together senior executive, diplomats and everything. It's not exactly the case. I worked in different environments. Then I kind of brought them together because I take Formula One drivers to come at conferences and explain their vision of how they handle their own situation. But it's more, what I really like is, if I ask you guys, when you tell me, Nolan, you were a negotiator, most of the people would say, what are you negotiating? And it's actually a funny question because you don't know. You can negotiate everything. What you're negotiating is the human capital, the human aspect. And so when I do a conference, or with what we have was we know yourself first, or we talk about, all the kind of, sickness, pathologies, manipulation, lies. We talk about everything and through the others and about yourself. It's just, what am I actually teaching people? A way back to their own consciousness, a way to their own self, which in society, if you look at the few speakers, in the US, you have some amazing speakers that we like it or not, you have a different kind of mentality with the Simon Sinek, Tony Robbins and everything, which we don't have in Europe. We're all smaller groups, and these guys are amazing. And when you think about it, just read, they all have one thing in common. They're not exactly telling you what to do. They're telling you how you should start to be yourself and then do the things you're trying to do. And this is what we've done with that little KYS. And in all of these conferences, is normally when people go out of the conferences we give, and I think on the bio, I've selected 6 very specific subjects for this year. Normally, they have to be inspired and a little bit challenged to say, I didn't ask myself these questions. And then we can really enter something. When you go out of something and you're like, okay, right, I know what is a BATNA, I know what is this kind of, you don't fail. Now it's, okay, right, in that situation, and I treat them. I had videos, I have things where they fail. And they don't fail because I want them to fail. One of the exercises I did I was in Ukraine, training the special forces of the region at the border of a war, the front line. And these people, they have a very specific agenda. Now, soldiers, Ukrainian, kind soldiers coming from the front lines, they come back into a weekend of retreats. They can calm down, but they have the trauma of war. So they go into bars. They have all of this anger that needs to go out. They take a few drinks and they take their gun and they go creating a conflict. So you're a police officer there. You need to neutralize someone, which is one of your soldiers, is on your side. He's a kind guy being wounded. Do you shoot him? So it was very, very difficult. So I needed actually to provoke them, to actually make them see something different. So the first thing that I did, it's a very specific, very simple exercise. I've put them all facing each other and they had to do arm wrestling. And so they started, and after 30 minutes or 30 seconds, I say, well, sorry. I say that the team or the person that would make the more points would win. So they were all fighting each other. And then suddenly at the end, I took one and I said, why don't we just work together? Do you want to make points? Okay, let me do. And then we did, and we scored points. And it's simple. I've learned that in a negotiation program in the US, but they felt really upset.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, naturally, we don't go into collaboration. The guy who is angry, if you hurt me, I will be angry. I'm communicating with you. You've touched that emotional part. And so what I try to do in these conferences is to open them up emotionally, and then you bring the rational. Because if I bring the rational without you feeling it, then I'm just one guy amongst plenty of other guys. And that's maybe where that work with that emotional intelligence, which is not only, I've studied emotion, expression of emotion. So it's separate to emotional intelligence, but it goes close. But there's a little bit of everything in emotional intelligence. It's actually very important. And I give you one example. Remember last time you had the heart broken because your girlfriend left you? Might be a few years ago, but just remember the pain. Your best friend would come and would tell you, hey, in French, we say, when you've lost one, you get 10 back. And, you try to go to the rational of people. But if someone would tell you that when you have the pain, you cannot receive it. Actually, it creates anger and say, don't minimize my pain. But it's the same in a divorce. It's the same in a war. It's the same on everything. We all have an interest behind, which is an emotional interest. And especially in conflict resolution, or even a narcissistic state, he has an interest behind. He has something emotional that was broken because the non-recognition of his father, or whatever. And if you don't go and find that emotional interest, then you might actually miss completely the situation. Because if I'm angry against you, it might not be because of the rational thing you say, it might be because of something else. The emotionality, and so many times, we have a lot of negotiators. They come out of negotiation, they won, and they're like, I don't know, something is wrong. I don't feel good. It was not a good day. It was not a good negotiation because their interest, because something was too easy, because they feel they've been manipulated. Something emotional, it's not aligned. And that's what I try to cover in these conferences. It's more about this emotionality, you say that in English, this emotional intelligence around everything we do. So that's the reason why you should absolutely come and see our conferences.
So Steve, you were just mentioning the importance of an emotional intelligence on our decision-making communication skills. I can imagine that is really tough to do in practice when the natural inclination for someone might be to avoid those emotions or dismiss them altogether. So what is your advice, coaching, and training to actually get people to lean into emotions?
Yes. Oh, that's, I hope you have the next 2 hours because that's going to be a long answer. Now, let me go step by step. Sonia, my wife, she wrote a wonderful sentence in the book we wrote together. It's, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? She got that from an American book, which I think in French is called La Cour en Miracle. I don't know the name in English. So whenever you go into a complex negotiation, there's really your ego wanting to be right, and then there's the rest. So do I really want to be right is one of the first questions I ask. Then the second question, if there's a conflict or if it's important, I ask a second question, say, what would love do now? So imagine that I can crush you, I can manipulate you. I see that you're less whatever, or that you're toxic and that I can do something. Being an ethical negotiator, because this is how we call assertive, it's actually to really try to put things into perspective. The logo of Vision for Peace, it's W3. Today, we cannot do win-win anymore. If you win, I win, and one of us is starving, it doesn't make sense anymore. We have to save, not the world would, by definition, sustain itself, but we need to save the human race or civilization. So when I approach all of these subjects, I just try to look at how is the person in front. And I say something, which I might be wrong, but the most emotional intelligence of the person in a conflict, for example, should be the most humble of the two. If I know that you're really wounded and I see that you're in a depressive state, do I want to poke you where it hurts, or do I want to take the intelligence to calm everything down? So this is key to what we do in conflict resolution, because war is about wanting to be right. And I'm not going to go into the subject of war, but if you look how the European Union has behaved towards Russia, you understand why Russia closed all the discussions and collaboration and went into war. And it's not the only reason. It's just that there's always much more than just a good and a bad. There's always many different aspects. We say that a misunderstanding, it's a misspoken and a misheard. And it's quite important to say, just to understand the situation with a little more than, emotional intelligence. If someone you see is bargaining and trying to, what is his stake behind? What is this interest? Is it because he didn't make his numbers? Because he's afraid of being fired? Because, there's always other questions. What is the fear behind the fear? What is the argument behind the argument? And when you start becoming emotional intelligence, which we all have that emotional intelligence, we would say that some people are maybe more empathetic than others, but we should always consider the other ones. And honestly, if I would win at the detriment of someone, then my feeling would not be good. I would feel like it was maybe a little bit as a crook. It doesn't mean that I would not take it, but I would not go and hurt the person because he didn't see or because of his background didn't learn something. So this is actually key when you see how the world has to be changed. MIT came out with a wonderful, with Union College, they came out with a wonderful study. They studied that women have 2 more emotional intelligence than men, which is cooperation and collaboration. And it's proven. They gave difficult tasks to be handled by a group of women only. They would always succeed faster and better than women and men and than men. And it exists. Emotional intelligence, as Goldstein developed it, but there's plenty of subjects about this. That kind of emotion exists. The World Economic Forum put it in the top 10 skills that we have to have for the future is actually emotional intelligence. When you sit in front of someone and you realize that the person might be dysfunctional or might be hurt or might be sad or might be depressive or might be whatever, or might be actually narcissistic, or maybe you are the one dysfunctional, you can handle the situation differently. And honestly, with the quality of life that you can have, when you start becoming very ethical, abundance doesn't mean taking away from someone. There's an equation when you can respect the person and you can still be abundant. And I tell you, I'm absolutely not on the socialist side. I have a little capitalistic word. We make money. With the money we do, we reinvest with my wife, especially in some programs, or we'll speak about this in a minute. But it doesn't mean that we don't get. I'm absolutely not. It's just that, getting to the point where you feel you're crushing the other ones and, really stealing out of the poor. And it just, that's maybe a old way of doing it when we didn't have that many information about the world. Now we see a little bit the balance. We see the poor people. We see everything. Come on, with our heart, we can contribute a little more. There's a difference between where we are now, the extreme capitalism, and whatever socialism. Come on, we're all clever and intelligent. There's many ways in the middle we can study to create a better society. I don't say it's easy, but I really said it's possible.
Absolutely. Hey, could you tell us a bit about Vision for Peace Initiative and how you seek to support children and the vulnerable through its efforts?
Yes. So Vision for Peace was a little bit of a bigger initiative, which I had to swallow a little bit my pride and realize that if you want to change the world, it takes a little more than dreams and trying to convince politicians by knocking on the door and say, look, we have the equation for peace. So Sonia, my wife, as an author, as a singer, and she was quite famous, especially amongst youngsters. Because she was doing big, not comedies, musicals. And so, with 100 children dancing on stage and she's flying. It's really cool. Not flying, there's a cable.
Yeah.
And so we started, she wrote a show where she speaks with her consciousness. So she's a lady or a woman, there's 4 different age category, and she falls in love with a toxic guy. And she has to go back and study herself to go out of that toxic relationship into consciousness. And there's 14 songs. So we did that really against harassment and domestic violence, because in Switzerland, we're a rich country, everything is hidden, but we have the same numbers of everywhere in the world. It looks slightly better. We see less homeless in the streets because it's more regulated, but it is exactly the same problem. Same number of pedophiles, same number of domestic violence, same number of arrests. So here we hide these subjects. We don't want to talk about it. So we took as a responsibility to try to plant a seed of self-confidence within the possible victim. You never know when you're going to be a victim, but you know that the toxic person is going to, exactly like diving with sharks, maybe we'll talk about it in a minute, but you create the shark. You create the animal by your behavior. If the narcissistic or the narcissistic pervert comes to you, your behavior will actually make him stay and try with you or go away. And you cannot really change the executioner, but you can change the vulnerable, the possible victim, to just realize that there are a lot of sharks out there and they will try. You know, we cannot stop them. Someone is going to try to rob you. Someone is going to try to jump you. Someone is going to try to insult you and minimize you to make fun in front of everybody. And it's the same in the adults. So what we try to do is talk openly about it, to just realize that first, her and me, we were in that category. Me more for family reason, and her for the relationship she had with the husband. And you know, the different tricks to get into the reality, just to see that there's something that is wrong. How do you correct it? And then what do you do and how you can behave and how do you rebuild yourself? And so that's the number one. Then the second is I'm still doing a lot of humanitarian negotiation. And this is my heart. Every time we can help an NGO or we can help any kind of organization around the world for a conflict, then I would immediately jump in. And normally, even if it would not be paid, that's the part of the contribution. I would really try to help different causes. And it works. If you look at the number of resolution we have, we're close to 85%. So there's real value in neutralizing emotions. And even we work with lawyers now, you know, lawyers that, you know, lawyers don't have, it's not in their job description to really go to a resolution. It might be actually to make one side win. But we have a lot of discussion with lawyers that when they see that the fight is really too emotional and that it's going to go on for 2 years, it might be good for the timesheet, but sometimes they would actually call us and then we would turn down the emotional aspect of it. And so I do a lot of that within companies, within partners, or within civil. I don't do civil mediation, but just actually calming it down. And then I work with mediators that would come and do the official civil one. So that's our little participation. I would really hope that with some of the conferences that I have, I can inspire people to become peacemaker, because peace is a personal choice. A lot of people ask me, I was lucky enough, but to work with a few presidents of countries and to have 1 or 2 very high scale stuff. And they all ask me, oh, how is it actually, you know, how can I get there? And I just tell them that I did over 800 missions the past 20 years, and I did all level and all kind of stuff. And if there's a fight in the street, I'm going to go and I'm going to calm it down. And this is going to be a mandate in my heart for free, but because this is what we do. You know, if you're a negotiator, a mediator, you handle this kind of situation. You don't wait to make peace because you talk with the president of Russia. That's almost impossible. But if there's a conflict and your team, there's a conflict in your family, and you know how to handle it, and you don't listen to your ego, and you don't try to take over the person and win the argument, and you really try to build something out of respect, wow, you've won. You're a peacemaker. And we try to instill that in a lot of little hearts, because we see a lot of very good people out there. And most of the people are afraid of conflict because they don't know how to handle it, because we didn't teach them how to handle it. So we try to tell them that there's huge value within conflicts, creativity, different way of seeing the world. And we try really to inspire people that way. So I think that we have a lot of work to do. So we're good for the next 40 years.
I think so. So Steve, we teased this a couple times, swimming with sharks. What's all this about?
It's actually, this is funny because I don't know exactly how it started, but there's something inside of me that was completely neutralized with fear. So all of these big things, I would not be afraid at all. And so one day, and I'll come back to the shark. One day we were at a conference with Sonia. There was around 350 kids and parents. And she was singing and I was speaking. And I was talking about diving with sharks. And so suddenly this 10 years old boy stands up, speaks in front of everybody, crying, saying that he's been bullied for the past 4 years, that he asked help at school and in the family and nobody's helping him, and that he's ready to commit suicide. And this guy broke my heart. And at the end, he came to me and he said, so Steve, you dive with sharks, you walk with lions, so you're not afraid of everything. And I looked at the stage and I looked at Sonia and I say, singing with Sonia would be the scariest thing I can do. By respect for you and all of us that have to fight our parents, our colleagues, our brothers, the bully at school, this is fear. This is real fear. So I actually went on stage and now I'm singing all the shows with Sonia's because by respect of all of that. Because I remember when I was a broken kid, some small stuff would be so huge in my heart. So when you realize that when you go diving with sharks underwater are not dangerous if you behave properly. So if you behave like a prey, they will behave like predator. That's what we try to teach people. And in negotiation, it's the same. If you behave like prey, they behave like predator. Make a mistake with sharks, they bite you, not because they want to eat you. A shark underwater is not interested in eating you unless it's a dysfunctional shark. So there's almost never shark attacks underwater unless you behave improperly. So I created this program called Fear is in Your Mind Only, taking people on the field so they actually see where is the reptilian fear that you have, which is a very natural one, protection one, and where is the mental fear? The mental fear, which is creating that story of analyzing all the pros and cons and possibilities and making a mess in your mind, making you think that you're going to die, everything. And so I was lucky enough to train with one group of the special forces in Europe to really see how your fear is impacting you. And I try to bring it to people so they understand that the little voice they're hearing in their mind, I am not good enough, I'm never going to make it, blah, 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 this guy is better than me, especially with social media, with all of that. This judgment is actually not reality. There's plenty of things we have in our mind that we believe is reality, but it's not. And fear is a big one. And I always ask them the question, what would you do today if you would neutralize all your fear? And people would say, I would change my life in an instant. And it's like, let's go. Because the world needs you as a pure, complete human being and not just a scared version of yourself when you become a lawyer because your parents wanted you to be a lawyer and you're afraid to disappoint them. And it's okay if you do it. No judgment. But behind the fear, with the homo sapiens sapiens, there's the double. What is the fear behind the fear? And it's the fear of rejection, fear of not being loved, fear of fear of dying. There's plenty of fears, but these ones are reptilians. Let's just neutralize the first one, and you can be underwater with sharks, and you just realize that these guys are not interested in you. They are not. You just need to behave properly, like in any corporation, like, if you're toxic underwater and you move too fast or you go on your back, yeah, the shark is going to change his behavior. This is the same in a corporation. This is the same in a negotiation. If I jump on you in a negotiation trying to show that I'm better than you, then you might hurt me or you might want to hurt me. And it's exactly the same. That's just a step of humility that I had to learn because I was the first one, and I'm not lecturing anybody. I was the first one to, I always say in my conferences that I never do the same mistake twice. I normally do it 12 or 13 times just to make sure. So that's the kind of mistakes that I've done. And I've tried to learn out of all of this with all this great people, Formula One diplomats, and just to package it into something to say, look, there's a little something in your attitude that works if you look at the mirrors that way. So that's pretty much all of what I do.
Well, you just said that you have made a mistake once or twice. You have such a wealth of experiences. Would you mind sharing what you consider maybe to be your greatest or one of your greatest negotiation failures and what you learned from that? And then we'll let you redeem yourself by maybe sharing a negotiation success and what was key to achieving it. So
Right.
a failure and then a success.
So you will be very surprised with the failure. I had a few very good people around me, and they all told me when I was young that I was going in the wrong direction, that I was looking at the wrong place, that I was searching for a social recognition outside, and I didn't trust them. So the worst negotiation I had with myself, I never wanted to believe something that was actually purest, a little more pure inside of me, and I didn't negotiate correctly for me, and that led me on the top of that cliff to want to die. And that's the number one mistake I made. It's not listening with wisdom a little bit of the others around. Now, honestly, the best negotiation I don't have. I'm very proud about a few things. Normally, it's not the big things, it's the very emotional things. So I did many things, but it would be sometimes when it was involving children being abducted by a parent, and that I would have to talk and, with the parent that would have abducted it, and, and the relationship with the kids and how they hug you and how, they send you photos after. I don't do big hostage stuff. I do strategical work with some of the international organization, but I'm not police forces. I'm not military. I do more of the relationship. So it's mainly the small things where you've been touched by someone. Or I remember a few, one actually that was, it was a very powerful man in a country. And the way when he closed the door, when he took me in his arms and when he cried and he said, I'm trying to do the right thing, but I'm badly surrounded. All of these people think only about politics and I don't know how to behave. And he cried in my arms. Wow. And these kind of things are very touching, and they would be the best negotiation that I have done. Yeah. It's actually when you know that you touch someone and you have a trigger and you change something for the long run. Yeah. And the person is back into his shoes and say, okay, I'm going to do the right thing because it feels good.
I really appreciate that. And I was going to say earlier, as you were talking about Vision for Peace, I just appreciate your heart so much in the work that you do. And I would say that my greatest successes too are when there's true transformative effects or change, and you get to see that, and especially how kind when somebody brings you the flowers, right? Yeah. When they let you know that, hey, you really made an impact. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, at NEGOTIATEx, we're focused on elevating one's ability to influence through purposeful negotiations. As we wrap up with final insights, which you offer to our listeners on how they can become more effective in their daily negotiations.
Right. There's one word that I'm going to mention. Is the word karma. Karma means action. Do. You will fail. Don't wait for the big deal or the big negotiation or the big peace process to become a peacemaker. Be a peacemaker at every level. In your company, with someone sad in your building, just take time, study the human, help them negotiate, mediate, whatever they have, facilitate kindness. Peace is a personal choice. We change people by changing ourselves and to bringing that humility, resilience, and strength. And that's very important. My wife, she knows, sometimes in the car, she's like, oh, he's doing it again. If someone crashed with a bike, I jump out of the car and I run. And she's like, oh God, he's doing it again. But this is who I am. I like helping. I like making a difference. And I like sometimes getting a compliment, but I don't mind. But sometimes I need it. So sometimes you do it for the right reason. Sometimes you do it for the wrong reason. Sometimes I want to be a superhero. Sometimes I don't. And this is okay. This is okay to be imperfect, but do try, crash, restart, hurt yourself, talk. The humility is ask questions. I don't know any senior in my life that if I went to that person with humility and say, hey, would you just teach me something? The person is proud. They would teach you something. Right. Get from all of this, and this is the most important. Karma means action. Do to become whatever you want to be, but do it.
Well, Thanks for sharing, Steve. And Steve, thanks for joining us on the podcast. I'll turn it over to Aram for final wrap up.
Yeah, I just, there's so much here. Thank you. This last piece about change others by really focusing on myself first. I think that flows throughout the entire discussion we've had. I thank you, for the humility as well as,
go ahead. The heart are not coming. They I don't do it well enough. Well, thank you. That there you go.
The heart to negotiation. So
absolutely.
Hey, thanks, Steve. Really appreciate you being with us.
Just a question: are you coming to see the conferences, or did I completely discourage you?
Definitely got to figure out how to get there.
Okay, good. You guys are great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, that's it for us on today's podcast. If you haven't already, please rate, review, and subscribe to NEGOTIATEx podcast, and we'll see you in the next episode. Hey, thanks for checking out this video on NEGOTIATEx TV. If you found any value at all, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification icon if you want to be notified of future videos. And then we also have a couple videos over here that you might be interested in checking out. If you and your small business, your team, are looking to get negotiations or leadership training, then you can head over to NEGOTIATEx.com and learn more about the coaching services we offer. Thanks, and I'll see you over in the next video.